The sun was setting slowly over the small town of Brooksville. The streets were calm and the golden light of evening made the houses glow warmly. Marcus was walking home from his workplace, holding a small brown wallet in his hand. He had just collected his weekly payment from the garage where he worked. It was not a lot of money, but for him, it meant food for the week and a few bills paid on time. He had worked hard since morning and was tired, but a little smile stayed on his face. Marcus was a man in his early 50s, known around the neighborhood for his gentle nature and honest work. People often saw him fixing cars, helping neighbors, and greeting everyone with respect. He lived a simple life and believed that kindness could make even a rough day better. As he walked past the corner store, he waved to the shopkeeper, who waved back with a friendly smile. When Marcus turned down Oak Street, he noticed a police car parked near the end of the road. At first, he thought it was nothing unusual. Police cars often passed by in the evening, checking the area. But this time, the car did not move. It stayed in the same spot and the headlights turned toward him. A small uneasiness grew inside him, but he kept walking calmly. He had done nothing wrong and he knew he had no reason to be afraid. After a few steps, the car door opened. A tall police officer stepped out, wearing sunglasses even though the sun was nearly gone. His name was Officer Daniels, a man with a strict face and a tone that often made people nervous. Many locals did not trust him because he treated some people unfairly. Marcus had heard stories about him but had never crossed his path before that evening. Officer Daniels walked straight toward Marcus and raised his hand, signaling him to stop. Marcus stopped politely and greeted him, trying to keep his voice calm. Daniels asked where he was coming from and what he had in his hand. Marcus explained that he was coming from work and that the wallet contained his weekly pay. Daniels asked to see the wallet. Marcus hesitated for a moment, unsure why he was being questioned, but he handed the wallet over, hoping the officer would just check it and give it back. Daniels opened the wallet and counted the money slowly. He asked Marcus how he got the money and why he was carrying it in cash. Marcus explained again that it was his pay and that his boss always paid him in cash at the end of the week. Daniels looked at him for a long moment and then closed the wallet. Marcus expected him to return it, but instead, Daniels slipped the wallet into his pocket. Marcus's eyes widened in confusion. He politely asked for it back, explaining that it was his only money for the week. Daniels replied in a cold tone, saying he needed to take it for checking and that Marcus could collect it later at the station. Marcus tried to reason with him. He told him that he needed that money to buy groceries and pay his rent. But Daniels ignored his words. He turned to walk back to his car, his hand still on the wallet. Marcus stood there feeling helpless. His voice shook as he called out again, asking the officer to return his money. At that very moment, a black SUV came speeding around the corner and stopped near them. The sudden arrival caught everyone's attention. The door opened quickly and a man stepped out wearing a dark suit and tie. His movements were sharp but calm, and his eyes focused straight on the scene in front of him. The man was Ryan, Marcus's son. He worked as an FBI agent in another city and was visiting his father for the weekend. Ryan had been driving back to his father's home when he noticed the police car and saw what was happening from a distance. His instincts told him something was wrong, and he decided to stop. As Ryan walked toward them, Daniels frowned, clearly not recognizing who he was. Ryan showed his badge calmly and introduced himself as an FBI agent. His voice was steady and confident. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him when he saw his son. He had no idea Ryan would arrive so quickly. It felt almost like fate had placed him there at that exact moment. Daniels looked surprised for a second but quickly tried to act confident. He asked why an FBI agent was interfering in a local matter. Ryan replied that he was not interfering but simply observing an incident that involved his father. His tone was firm but polite. He did not raise his voice or make any threats. He only asked for the situation to be handled fairly. Marcus stood quietly, watching his son handle the situation with calm authority. He had always known Ryan to be intelligent and brave, but seeing him act like this made him feel proud beyond words. The people who had gathered nearby whispered among themselves, sensing that something unusual was happening. Ryan asked Daniels to explain why he had taken the wallet. Daniels tried to give a vague answer, saying he was checking for illegal activity. Ryan asked if he had any reason to believe that Marcus was involved in anything illegal. Daniels hesitated. His confidence began to fade, Ryan reminded him that the law required fairness and that no one could take another person's property without cause. His words were clear, his expression calm. Daniel slowly reached into his pocket and held the wallet, still unsure of what to do. Ryan waited patiently but firmly. His presence alone seemed to make Daniels uneasy. Marcus felt both nervous and grateful. He did not want the situation to turn worse, but he trusted his son to handle it the right way. Ryan looked at his father for a moment and gave a small, reassuring nod. That small gesture gave Marcus peace of mind. Daniels finally sighed and said he would return the wallet after verifying the contents. Ryan told him there was no need for further delay, and that his father's identification and workplace could be easily verified. The surrounding people were now recording the scene with their phones, which made Daniels even more uncomfortable. After a tense pause, Daniels handed the wallet back to Marcus. Marcus took it with shaking hands and quietly thanked him. Ryan stayed composed, watching the officer carefully. Daniels mumbled something under his breath and walked back toward his car. Ryan stood beside his father as the police car drove away slowly. The evening air felt lighter now, and Marcus took a deep breath. He looked at his son with gratitude and pride. Ryan smiled slightly and said he had just arrived at the right moment. They both started walking home together side by side. Marcus felt thankful that his son had come when he did. The sun had almost disappeared and the first streetlights were beginning to glow. What had started as a simple walk home had turned into a moment that neither of them would ever forget. That night, Marcus realized that life could change in a single minute, but he also learned that sometimes help arrived at the exact second it was needed. The evening breeze carried a soft chill as Marcus and Ryan walked home together. The street was quiet again, but Marcus's heart was still racing from what had just happened. He held the wallet tightly in his hand, as if afraid it might disappear again. Ryan walked beside him, calm and silent, his eyes still alert as he watched the surroundings. When they reached the small house where Marcus lived, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. It was a neat and humble home, filled with old furniture that told stories of many years of hard work. The walls were lined with family pictures, most of them showing Marcus and Ryan together from when Ryan was young. Marcus placed his wallet on the table and finally let out a long breath of relief. Ryan looked around and smiled faintly. It had been a few months since he last visited home. His job as an FBI agent kept him busy and he rarely got time to relax. Seeing his father safe made him feel peaceful again. Marcus offered him a seat and poured 2 cups of tea. As they sat across the table, Marcus began to talk about what had happened earlier. He told Ryan that he had never expected something like that to happen in his quiet neighborhood. He had always believed that as long as a person stayed honest and kind, the world would treat them fairly. Ryan listened carefully, his expression serious. He had seen many unfair situations during his career, but it always hurt him more when it happened to someone he loved. Ryan placed his cup down and said softly that what happened was not right. He told his father that every citizen had the right to be treated with respect. Marcus nodded slowly. He knew his son was right, but he had lived long enough to know that the world was not always fair. Still, he was proud that Ryan stood up for him calmly and wisely. As they talked, Ryan's phone buzzed. It was a message from his office. He opened it and read quickly. His expression changed slightly and Marcus noticed it. He asked if something was wrong. Ryan replied that his team had been investigating complaints about corruption in small police departments across the region. Some officers were suspected of taking advantage of people. Ryan realized that the officer from earlier, Daniels, could be part of that same pattern. He thought about how Daniels had tried to take the wallet so casually, as if he had done it before. Ryan's instincts told him that there might be a bigger problem hidden behind this one event. Marcus looked concerned when he heard that. He did not want his son to get involved in more trouble, but Ryan assured him that he knew how to handle it. He said his work was not about revenge, but about making sure no one else went through the same pain. Marcus stayed quiet for a moment, then nodded. He knew his son's heart was in the right place. Ryan decided to visit the local station the next morning. He wanted to file a report and observe how the officers behaved. Marcus agreed to go with him, though he felt a bit nervous. He trusted his son completely, but he also knew how quickly small things could turn complicated. That night, Ryan stayed in his old room. The walls were still decorated with his childhood drawings and medals from school. Lying on the bed, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about how life had changed. He remembered his father's struggles and how hard he had worked to raise him alone after his mother passed away. That memory gave Ryan even more determination to protect his father from injustice. The next morning, sunlight filled the small house. Marcus prepared breakfast while Ryan reviewed a few files on his laptop. After eating, they got ready and left for the police station. On the way, Ryan noticed how everyone in the town greeted his father with respect. People smiled and waved, unaware of what had happened the previous evening. When they reached the station, Officer Daniels was standing near the entrance. His face tightened when he saw Ryan and Marcus walking toward him. Ryan greeted him politely, but Daniels did not respond with warmth. Ryan asked to speak with the chief of police. After a short wait, they were taken to the chief's office. Chief Lawson was an older man with a calm presence. He welcomed them and asked what brought them in. Ryan introduced himself again, showing his badge. He explained that an incident had taken place the previous evening involving his father and Officer Daniels. He described it clearly and without anger, keeping his tone professional. Chief Lawson listened quietly and then looked at Daniels, who stood near the wall, shifting uncomfortably. When the chief asked for his explanation, Daniels tried to defend himself by saying that he was checking for suspicious activity. But his words sounded weak in front of Ryan's detailed description. Ryan calmly stated that his father was an honest worker with no criminal record, and that taking someone's money without cause was unacceptable. The chief nodded, agreeing with Ryan's point. He assured both of them that the department took such matters seriously, and that an internal review would begin immediately. Marcus sat quietly during the discussion. He did not like being in such situations, but he felt proud watching how respectfully Ryan handled everything. Ryan was confident but polite. He did not try to embarrass anyone. He only wanted fairness. After the meeting, the chief thanked them for coming forward. He said that sometimes people stayed silent even when they were treated wrongly, but speaking up helped improve the system. Ryan thanked him and said that justice only worked when people stood for it. As they left the station, Marcus felt lighter. He looked at his son and smiled. He said that he never thought one day his little boy would stand up like this. Ryan laughed softly and said that everything he learned about fairness came from his father. That simple exchange made both of them feel proud. They stopped by a small cafe for tea before heading home. The owner recognized Marcus and greeted them warmly. The man asked if everything was fine since he had seen the police car near Marcus's street the night before. Marcus simply said that things were being taken care of and that everything was fine now. Ryan smiled quietly, knowing that the truth did not always need to be spoken loudly. As they sat sipping tea, Ryan's phone buzzed again. It was another message from his office. He checked it and saw that the name of Officer Daniels appeared in a report connected to other complaints. His suspicion was right. Daniels might have been involved in more than one unfair incident. Ryan decided he would look deeper into it after returning to his base. Marcus noticed his son's serious look and asked if everything was fine. Ryan smiled and said that sometimes life showed signs at the right time. If he had not arrived that evening, things might have gone differently. Marcus nodded, feeling thankful once again. The two of them walked home slowly under the warm sunlight. Marcus talked about his younger days, and Ryan listened with a calm smile. It felt like the bond between them had grown even stronger after what they had faced together. That day ended quietly, but both of them knew it was not the end of the story. Something bigger was waiting ahead. Marcus hoped for peace while Ryan prepared himself for truth. He knew his father's name had to stay clean, and justice had to reach every corner, even in the smallest town. The calm after the storm gave them both a moment to breathe, but Ryan's mind stayed focused. The next steps he would take might reveal something that no one in Brooksville expected. The morning sun was bright, and the streets of Brooksville were already busy with people going to work. Marcus stood by the window, looking outside as the small town came to life. He could hear the sound of cars passing, children laughing, and neighbors greeting one another. But inside his heart, a small worry still stayed. Even though Ryan had handled the situation with calmness and respect, Marcus wondered what would happen next. Ryan was sitting at the table with his laptop open. His face looked serious as he reviewed some files and reports. He had received more messages from his office early that morning. His department had officially connected Officer Daniels to a list of complaints from nearby towns. The reports showed that Daniels had been accused of unfair treatment several times before, but no solid action had been taken yet. Ryan read each line carefully, trying to understand how deep the problem went. Marcus brought him a cup of tea and placed it beside him. Ryan thanked him and smiled softly. Marcus sat down and asked if the situation was getting worse. Ryan replied that it was not worse but more complicated. He explained that Daniels might not be acting alone. There could be others involved who helped him cover his actions. Marcus looked troubled. He asked his son if it was safe to get involved further. Ryan said calmly that he could not ignore it now. It was not only about what happened to Marcus but also about the many others who might have faced the same injustice. Marcus stayed quiet for a while and then said that if doing the right thing meant helping others, then it was worth it. Those words made Ryan feel proud. Later that day, Ryan decided to visit a few people in the neighborhood to see if anyone else had faced similar problems. Marcus went with him. They stopped by a local grocery store where the owner, Mr. Thomas, welcomed them kindly. Ryan asked if he had ever had any issues with the police. Mr. Thomas hesitated but then nodded slowly. He said that a few months ago, Daniels had taken money from his store during a random check, claiming it was for verification, but the money was never returned. Ryan listened carefully and asked if Mr. Thomas had filed a complaint. The man said he had tried, but nothing happened. It was the same story with two other people they met later that day. One of them was a young man who worked at a gas station, and the other was an old woman who sold fruits at the market. Both had faced unfair treatment but had remained silent because they were afraid. Ryan took notes of everything and assured them that their voices would be heard. Marcus watched his son work with quiet admiration. He saw how Ryan's calm nature made people trust him. Everyone he spoke to felt safe sharing their experiences with him. By the end of the afternoon, Ryan had gathered enough information to take the next step. They returned home as the sun began to set. The sky turned orange and pink, and a gentle wind passed through the trees. Ryan opened his laptop again and began typing a detailed report. He listed every person who had spoken to him and described each case clearly. Marcus helped him by recalling small details from their conversations. As the night grew darker, Ryan received a call from one of his colleagues at the FBI office. The colleague informed him that Daniels was already under watch for suspicious activities. Hearing this, Ryan felt more confident that justice was near, but the situation in Brooksville needed careful handling. He knew that if he made a direct move without proof, it could create unnecessary problems. The next morning, Ryan decided to meet Chief Lawson again. Marcus suggested going with him, but Ryan asked him to stay home and rest. He promised to handle everything with care. Marcus agreed and wished him luck. Ryan left the house, walking with steady steps toward the police station. When he arrived, he noticed a few officers standing outside. Some recognized him from the previous visit and greeted him politely. He entered the building and asked to see the chief. After a short wait, Chief Lawson welcomed him inside his office. Ryan sat down and presented the new information he had gathered. The chief listened attentively. He seemed surprised to hear that multiple residents had similar experiences involving Daniels. Ryan explained that it was not just about small unfair acts but a pattern of behavior that had gone unchecked. He also mentioned that the FBI had already taken interest in the officer's actions due to earlier reports. Chief Lawson leaned back in his chair, thinking deeply. He admitted that he had heard rumors about Daniels before but never had solid proof. He thanked Ryan for bringing clear details. Ryan suggested that the department start an internal review quietly, without alerting Daniels. The chief agreed and promised to handle it carefully. Meanwhile, outside the station, Daniels noticed Ryan's car parked near the entrance. He began to feel uneasy. He had not expected the matter to reach higher authorities so soon. He tried to act normal, but inside worry grew stronger. When Ryan came out of the office, their eyes met for a brief second. Ryan gave a polite nod, but Daniels looked away quickly. Ryan drove home feeling that the situation was moving in the right direction. Marcus was waiting for him at the door, eager to know what happened. Ryan told him that the chief was going to look into the matter and that things might start changing soon. Marcus felt relieved but also a bit anxious about what might follow. That evening, Ryan and Marcus sat in the small garden behind their house. The air was fresh and the sky was filled with stars. Marcus spoke about how life had never been easy, but how he always believed good people would make a difference. Ryan smiled and said that sometimes justice took time but always found its way. As they talked, a car passed slowly by their house. Marcus noticed it and asked if it could be someone from the station. Ryan looked carefully but said it was probably nothing. Still, he made a note of it in his mind. He had learned long ago that being cautious was always better than being careless. Later that night, Ryan received another message from his colleague at the FBI office. The message confirmed that Daniels was being officially added to a federal investigation list. Ryan smiled to himself, knowing that progress was being made. He turned off his phone and looked at his father, who was already asleep on the couch. Ryan covered him with a blanket and sat quietly beside him. He thought about how one small event had opened the door to uncovering a bigger truth. The town of Brooksville was peaceful on the surface, but underneath there were problems that needed light. Ryan decided that he would stay for a few more days until everything was settled. The night passed quietly. The moonlight entered through the small window and fell across the floor. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about how proud he was to protect his father and help others who could not speak up for themselves. The next day would bring new challenges, but he was ready. The truth was unfolding slowly, and Ryan knew he was walking the right path. Justice was not always loud or fast, but it was steady, and in the end it always stood strong. The next morning came with a clear blue sky. The town of Brooksville looked peaceful, but for Ryan the day was already filled with plans. He had decided to stay a little longer to make sure the case against Officer Daniels was handled properly. Marcus prepared breakfast and watched his son get ready. Ryan was wearing his usual neat suit, looking focused and calm. Marcus could tell by the way he moved that he was already thinking ahead. They sat together for breakfast. Marcus asked softly if things were moving in the right direction. Ryan nodded and said that the investigation was officially underway. He explained that Chief Lawson had promised to cooperate fully with the FBI team that was arriving soon. Marcus felt a wave of relief hearing that. He was proud that the matter was being taken seriously. Ryan finished his meal, grabbed his small notebook, and stepped outside. The air was fresh and the morning light fell softly on the quiet streets. As he walked toward the police station, he noticed a few people waving at him. Many residents had already heard about how he had helped his father. Some even came up to thank him for standing up for fairness. Their kind words reminded him why his work was important. At the station, Ryan was welcomed by Chief Lawson. The chief looked serious but calm. He said that he had reviewed the records and found that Daniels had been involved in several questionable cases. There were missing evidence reports and unexplained money transfers. Ryan listened carefully and noted down everything. He told the chief that the FBI would handle the deeper parts of the investigation, but that local cooperation was essential. While they were talking, Daniels entered the building. His steps were slow and his eyes shifted uneasily. He could sense that something had changed. Other officers who used to laugh and talk with him now seemed distant. Ryan stood quietly near the chief's desk when Daniels noticed him. Daniels tried to smile, but Ryan only greeted him politely and returned to his work. The polite tone made Daniels even more nervous. After leaving the station, Ryan visited Mr. Thomas and a few others who had spoken to him earlier. He informed them that the investigation had officially started and that their statements would help a lot. Everyone thanked him warmly. Marcus joined later, and the two of them sat in the cafe again for tea. The cafe owner smiled and said the town had not felt this hopeful in a long time. Ryan knew that justice took time, but he was happy to see that people were beginning to believe again. He reminded everyone to stay calm and patient. He also advised them not to argue with anyone from the police force and to let the law take its course. By the afternoon, Ryan received a call from his office. His senior officer informed him that a small federal team was on its way to Brooksville to assist with the investigation. They would arrive the next day to gather evidence and take official statements. Ryan thanked his senior and assured him that everything was under control. When he returned home that evening, Marcus was sitting on the porch reading a newspaper. He looked up and smiled when Ryan arrived. They talked for a while about how quickly things were moving. Marcus said he was amazed to see the community coming together. People who had been silent for years were now speaking openly about their experiences. Ryan listened quietly, feeling proud of the strength growing in the town. That night, the two shared dinner together. The peaceful silence of their home felt comforting after such busy days. Marcus spoke about Ryan's childhood, how he had always been brave and fair-minded even as a small boy. Ryan laughed softly and said that his father's teachings had shaped who he was. They talked late into the night until Marcus finally fell asleep on the couch. The next day began early. The FBI team arrived in 2 black vehicles and met Ryan at the station. There were 4 officers, all dressed in formal suits carrying files and laptops. They greeted Ryan warmly, already familiar with his reputation. Chief Lawson welcomed them and provided a private room for their work. Ryan led the briefing. He presented the evidence he had collected so far, including statements from residents and details from the chief's records. The team listened carefully and asked a few questions. They decided to review financial documents, police logs, and past complaints related to Officer Daniels. It was a long and detailed process, but everyone worked with quiet focus. As hours passed, the picture became clearer. The files showed a pattern of unfair stops, missing property reports, and irregular money handling. Daniels had taken advantage of his position, assuming no one would question him. Ryan watched the evidence pile up, knowing that the truth was finally coming to light. In the afternoon, Ryan stepped outside for a short walk. The sky was cloudy and a cool wind moved through the streets. He saw children playing and shopkeepers arranging goods outside their stores. Everything looked normal, yet he knew that this day would change many things for the town. While he was walking back, he noticed Daniels standing near his patrol car across the street. Daniels looked tense. For a moment, Ryan thought he might come forward to talk, but he turned away instead. Ryan did not follow him. He knew that sometimes silence made people face their mistakes more deeply than words ever could. Later in the evening, the FBI team completed their initial review and prepared a report. Ryan and Chief Lawson signed it together. The report clearly listed all the findings and recommended disciplinary action against Daniels, along with a full audit of the department. It was an important step toward restoring trust. When Ryan returned home, Marcus was waiting at the door with a hopeful look. Ryan smiled and said the investigation had gone well. He explained that the team had gathered enough proof to ensure fairness. Marcus felt proud and thanked his son for standing strong. He said that what Ryan had done was not just for him but for the entire town. That night they sat in the garden again. The stars shone brightly above them, and the air carried the soft sound of crickets. Marcus said that life had strange ways of teaching lessons. He had always told Ryan to live with honesty and kindness, and now he could see those values bringing light into dark corners. Ryan replied that everything he learned came from his father's simple wisdom. The next morning, news spread quickly. People in the town began talking about how an FBI investigation had uncovered corruption in the local police. Some were shocked, some were relieved, and others were proud that someone had finally stood up. The newspaper printed a small article about the case, mentioning that justice was being served. At the station, Daniels was asked to cooperate with the internal and federal inquiry. He did not resist. The weight of guilt was already heavy on him. Other officers who had ignored his actions also came forward to share what they knew. Chief Lawson made sure that the department handled everything with transparency. Ryan watched from a distance, calm and steady. He did not celebrate or show pride. For him, the true victory was not in punishment, but in restoring fairness. He believed that once truth came forward, change would follow naturally. As the day ended, Ryan stood near the old oak tree by his father's house. The leaves rustled softly above him. Marcus joined him, holding 2 cups of tea. They stood quietly, looking at the sunset. The orange light painted the sky, and the town seemed at peace again. Marcus said that sometimes one right action could change many lives. Ryan agreed and said that doing what was right was the only thing that ever truly mattered. They stood together, silent but content, knowing that their courage had made a difference. The next step would be completing the final report and letting the system take its course. Justice was no longer just a word in Brooksville. It was becoming real, one honest act at a time. The sun rose gently over the quiet neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Marcus sat on the front porch of his small house holding a warm cup of coffee. He looked peaceful, but his thoughts were deep. The events of the last few days had changed his view of the world. For years he had believed that people with power always won, but now he had seen that truth and justice could still rise above unfairness. Inside the house, Ryan was sitting at the kitchen table reading through some papers. His face looked serious, but there was a calmness in his eyes. He was preparing his official report about what had happened with Officer Daniels. He wanted to make sure everything was recorded clearly, not to punish anyone, but to make sure the truth would be respected. Marcus walked inside and smiled at his son. He said he was proud of him, not just because he worked for the FBI, but because of how he handled the whole situation. Ryan had stayed calm when things could have easily turned worse. He had shown strength, but also wisdom and control. Marcus said that seeing his son act with such honesty made him believe that good people could still make a real difference. Ryan smiled softly and told his father that he had learned those values from him. Marcus had worked hard all his life, never giving up even when things were unfair. He had taught Ryan to stand tall and never lose hope. Ryan said that his father's strength was what guided him in his work every day. Hearing that made Marcus feel proud in a way he had never felt before. Later that day, Ryan received a call from his office. His senior officer wanted him to return for a meeting. Ryan knew it would be about the report. He looked at his father and said he would be back soon. Marcus nodded and told him to take care. As Ryan left, Marcus looked at the sky again, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude. At the FBI office, Ryan entered a large conference room where a few senior agents were seated. They asked him to explain the whole incident. Ryan spoke clearly and calmly, describing everything that happened from the moment he arrived on the scene. He explained that his father had been treated unfairly and that his goal was not revenge but fairness. He said that every person deserved respect, no matter their background or color. The senior officers listened carefully. After a few questions, they told Ryan that he had done the right thing. They said that handling such moments with calmness and respect showed real strength. One of them even said that Ryan's actions had reminded everyone what true law enforcement meant. Ryan thanked them and promised to continue serving with integrity. Meanwhile, back in the neighborhood, people had started to talk about what happened that day. Many had seen the moment when Ryan stopped the unfair act, and they admired the way he handled it. Some said it gave them hope that things could change. Others said it was good to see someone with power stand up for what was right without anger or violence. Officer Daniels, on the other hand, was going through his own moment of reflection. After being reported, he had been suspended while the investigation was ongoing. At first, he was defensive and angry, but with time, he started to think about his actions. He realized that his behavior had not only hurt Marcus, but also damaged the trust people had in him and in the badge he wore. For the first time, he saw how his choices had created distance between him and the very people he was supposed to protect. One afternoon, a week later, Ryan received an unexpected call from the police department. Daniels wanted to meet Marcus and him. Ryan asked his father if he was comfortable with that, and Marcus agreed. They both went to the police station, not knowing what to expect. When they arrived, Daniels looked nervous but sincere. He stood up, took a deep breath, and apologized. He said he had made mistakes and that he had forgotten the true meaning of his duty. He said he had been going through his own struggles and allowed his frustration to cloud his judgment. He admitted that it was wrong and that he wanted to make things right. Marcus listened quietly. He didn't respond immediately. Then he said that forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about giving people a chance to change. He told Daniels that he hoped this experience would make him better at his job and help him treat others with more fairness. Daniels thanked him and promised to do better from then on. Ryan watched this exchange in silence. It was a powerful moment for him. He realized that change was possible when people were willing to face the truth. He also saw that his father's ability to forgive came from a deep sense of wisdom and peace. As they left the station, Marcus said something that stayed in Ryan's mind for a long time. He said that when someone hurts you, you can either carry that pain or turn it into strength. He said that true courage was not about fighting, but about forgiving and standing tall. Ryan smiled and agreed. Weeks passed and life slowly returned to normal. Marcus continued his job and Ryan returned to his work at the FBI. But something inside both of them had changed. Their bond had grown stronger, and their belief in justice had become deeper. Ryan often visited his father and they would sit together, talking about life and sharing laughter. Sometimes neighbors would stop by to greet them. People saw them as a symbol of hope and fairness in their small community. Marcus never asked for recognition, but he felt proud knowing that his son's actions had made a difference. One evening, as the sun set, Marcus looked at Ryan and said that life always tests people in unexpected ways. He said that what mattered was how they responded. Ryan nodded and said that he now understood that better than ever. He had seen the difference that calm courage could make. That night, as they sat quietly, a sense of peace filled the air. The past had been painful, but it had led them to something better. Marcus felt grateful for the lessons life had taught him. He had seen the worst of people, but also the best. And in the middle of it all, he had seen how love, honesty, and patience could heal even the deepest wounds. Ryan looked at his father with admiration. He knew that the journey ahead would bring new challenges, but he also knew that together, they could face anything. As the stars appeared above, Marcus smiled softly. The world was not perfect, but that night it felt just a little bit brighter. And in that small, quiet house, two men sat together, proud of who they had become and hopeful for what the future might bring. It was not just the end of a hard chapter, but the beginning of a new one filled with faith, fairness, and the power of forgiveness.